que de este número, cerca de 500,000 son niños. Es por eso que los gobiernos, las instituciones vinculadas a la salud y a la inocuidad de los alimentos, estamos obligados a no solo fomentar y fortalecer estas iniciativas, sino también a generar políticas públicas sólidas que permitan, primero, salvaguardar la vida de las personas, pero por otro lado también guardar la integridad de los alimentos, que eso también se traduce en ser más eficientes como país, porque se utilizan de manera más eficientemente los sistemas de salud, pero también generan onerosos ahorros a los países porque justamente se salvaguarda la salud de una manera preventiva. Pero también por otro lado, y no menos importante, el comercio se agilita y eso se traduce también en beneficio para los países. Es decir, estas iniciativas lo que tratan es de, bajo todos los términos, fomentar una cultura de prevención, produciendo y consumiendo alimentos inocuos. Hay temas importantes que debemos abordar, no solo en este día. Los riesgos que se generan en el mundo por ese crecimiento poblacional, por el crecimiento de la industria de alimentos, obligan a cada uno de nuestros países a generar esas políticas públicas enmarcadas en mejorar los sistemas de inocuidad de cada uno de nuestros espacios, de cada uno de nuestros países. Es por eso que les doy nuevamente esa bienvenida, porque sé que serán jornadas de muchísimo provecho y que ustedes puedan ser participantes integrales de todas estas cruzadas, de todas estas iniciativas, que aquí en Ecuador las hemos tomado con muchísima fuerza, justamente porque reconocemos y sabemos de la importancia del poder establecer estos vínculos con los diferentes actores de la producción, comercialización y también consumo de alimentos, y que, por supuesto, ustedes son los actores principales y son quienes definitivamente hacen grande cada una de estas iniciativas. Así que bienvenidos, les deseo una gran jornada y les mando un fuerte abrazo a todos, que sea de provecho.
A continuación, escucharemos palabras del presidente del Comité Coordinador del Codex Alimentarius para América Latina y el Caribe, CICILAC, Rommel Betancourt.
Antes de continuar, quisiera hacer una prueba con la intérprete de inglés. No estamos escuchando en inglés. Buenos días.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Excelente. Hoy sí.
Okay, okay, okay.
Gracias.
The Committee FAO-WHO CCLAC, the Regional Office of FAO for Latin America and the Caribbean, the Pan American Organization OPA Spanatosa, the International Regional Organism of Agricultural Safety, and IICA, welcome you today, June 7th, World Food Safety Day. This year, the motto is safety food. We also welcome all the authorities and representatives of the governmental institutions and non-governmental institutions that will share today different topics related to food safety, such as the early warning system, the last updates of the residuals of plague disease in vegetables and fruits, and the challenges of the Caribbean for food safety. The World Food Safety Day established with the goal to really reflect on the consequences the stakeholders of the supply chain from the farm to the table, to bring awareness on the importance of food safety on the day-to-day on our lives. On one hand, to protect the health of our consumers, and also to remember that food safety opens doors, open the opportunity to new markets, and also brings the development to our countries. Let's remember that the rules of the Codex are established and they must be observed based on scientific principles and under the international regulations of the World Trade Organization, among others. We are sure that today will be a successful journey, that we will achieve our goal, that we will reach important conclusions, and which we definitely will learn and appreciate that the food safety is key, that if food is not safe, it's not considered food. And we, the consumers, must consume food with the purpose of nutrition without being in fear of getting sick. Let's remember that the illnesses transmitted by food is a great challenge. Now we will present our focal point from FAO, Marisa Caipo.
Estimadas autoridades, colegas y participantes.
Dear authorities, participants, good morning to you all. My name is Marisa Caipo, and I'm the official of food safety of the regional office of the FAO in Latin American Caribbean in Chile. Welcome to this webinar for the World Food Safety Day 2022. I would like to start by speaking about what is food safety. This means a discipline that involves scientific actions to prevent that food contains substances that may cause problems in the health. The food safety is important because this is the third human basic right or need, just after the air and water. As food contribute to our food safety, when food is not free from danger, we can reduce hunger and poverty, and it's impossible to be healthy. So when the food is not safe, it's not considered food. So the responsible to ensuring the food safety are all the people involved, that the persons that produce, prepare, and serve food, because they have to implement practices to ensure food safety. In fact, this is a topic that we are involved. That's why we want to celebrate this day by saying our food is. Now we will present to you Margarita Corrales. Good morning to all the authorities that are with us here today and all the participants. Welcome to this virtual event. As you know, the access to safety food is a basic right. And this is a main topic of the public health to reach the ODS for the 2030 agenda. As you know, Latin America is one of the main exporters of food in the world, and it has a great responsibility to maintain higher standards of safety. A small incident in a local production may affect the public health, trade, tourism, and the economy worldwide. We estimate that every year 600 million people get sick as a cause of unhealthy food. We know that the growth population also is a big challenge in the food chain, and our commitment is very important to all the counterparts of all the parts that contribute in the production to prevent any contamination or the surge of resistant organisms. Nowadays, food safety have to adapt to the transformation technology, the new technology, and also the protection for the consumers. The consumers demand more transparency about the origin and the way the food is produced. Food safety is an issue that we all have to contribute, and we certainly have challenges ahead of us that may arise along the production chain to prevent illnesses transmitted by food. I only would like to thank all the organizers of this event and all the participants to. I hope that this event will be successful. Thank you very much for being here. Now, next, we will present to you Dr. Ana Marisa Cordero. Thank you. Hello to everybody. Hopefully, you are doing okay. I send my special greetings not only to the organizers, all the team, but also my partners that are here with me, that are representing the different regional entities and cooperation entities in this opening session. And I really want to say that we appreciate for the efforts in organizing this event, and particularly I send my special greetings to all the participants that are here with us today. For ICA, it's a pleasure to be part of this event, since the World Food Safety has the goal to promote an agriculture sector productive, competitive, and sustainable that provides safe food in the local markets and the world markets by generating the implementation of policies of food safety and quality for food. We also have three main actions. Two of them are related to the strengthening of the capabilities for safety, for food safety, and the other is related to boost the implementation of international standards. Saying that from my office and from the food safety program, we would like to share in this event what we consider that are great opportunities and the topics that involve the actions in food safety. The first one is the science is the base for decision making through the evaluation of risks. Let's remember that the science behind the evaluation of risk is a public benefit. Then we also have to understand and implement with the goal to reach a healthy balance between consumers' protection, environment, and trade. The second is that we have to think the importance of strategic partnerships at local, regional, and worldwide level, because that way we become stronger and allow us to implement actions and policies that are effective for food safety. We also would like to encourage you to continue sharing good practices, experiences, learn together, and promote initiatives that allow us to strengthen the abilities and capabilities also work with the promotion on the networks of experts that promote effective techniques in our countries. Another important point is let's work together by promoting a culture of food safety, not only in our companies, but also along the food chain, because this is a key element that we like to ensure that food safety is a shared responsibility in which every actor along the chain has to be aware about their role. And finally, a challenge related to all these topics, which is the implementation of the new technologies that will allow us to identify efficient solutions to continue producing safe food and to have better health. Send you a hug, and I wish you have great success in this event. Now we will listen to Executive Director of OIRSA, Efraín Medina Guerra. Dear colleagues and friends, Patricio Almeida, Executive Director of Agroquality.
Marisa Caipo de FAO, Margarita Corral.
From the Codex
Ana Marisa Cordero del IICA y estimado colega Raúl Peralta, director regional de Inocuidad de los Alimentos de OIRSA. Distinguidos panelistas, conferencistas que participarán en esta importante actividad el día de hoy. Participantes todos, que tengan un excelente y maravilloso día. Gozando de buena salud. Estamos en las postrimerías de la pandemia mundial.
We are living the post-pandemic era that have affected the health system worldwide. Hopefully, we are just finishing this situation in the world. For OIRSA, it's a pleasure to participate in this important activity, launching or the beginning of different activities that we will be conducting in different countries in America. It's celebrating the World Food Safety Day next June 7th. We definitely, the access to healthy food that are free from any contamination source, chemical or physical or biological, is key to ensure food safety and nutrition. To reach that goal, we all have a responsibility, from the producers with the rational use of chemicals that ensure that we don't use products that may contaminate, that may harm people in the long term, all kinds of chemicals, including that are involved in the production of food, from antibiotics and others that may harm the health. And the processes, the production processes, we also may include the water that it's important that the water is clean and free from contamination. We have had cases from salmonella that might be included in some vegetables because they use water that is contaminated, in this case, a biological type. The process of harvesting, storage is also important, as well as the agro-industrial processes with all kinds of preservation, or the excessive use of salt and sugar, just to mention among other factors that may cause healthy issues to consumers. We also recently have a case in Guatemala 15 days ago. So we had cases of people that died, 3 members of one family, and the others were seriously injured because they consume seafood that was previously alerted on that wasn't safe in the Pacific Ocean. So all these processes of harvesting and storage is they're really important, but that doesn't end there, but also in the trading, the labeling that has to ensure and has to describe that food hasn't been altered, that may have some kind of contamination, physical, chemical, and biological. Also at home, when we prepare the food and take them from the farm to the table, the food safety is key for good health. Hopefully that the activities that we are going to develop in this framework become a base to reflect, to implement a series of measurements. So our participation in any of the phases of the process of harvesting, storage, and trade of the food include different measurements to ensure food safety. Hope you have a great day, and hopefully that you have good health. Thank you. Thank you to all the different directors of the organizing institutions. Now we will ask you, to all the different participants, that you may leave your questions or thoughts in this chat, in the chat of YouTube. And now next, we are going to present you a video of the Codex Alimentarius on the World Food Safety Day. Which is the relationship between the world food safety. Food safety is related to having access to food, have an active day, and that means that food safety is a kind of food that won't harm you. If it's not safe, it's not food. To end hunger in the world, we must guarantee access to safe food for all of us.
Pasamos ahora.
And now next. Continuing with our agenda, we are going to hear our high authorities on food safety on behalf of the Ministry of Health and Social Protection from Colombia. Here with us is the coordinator of food safety of the Ministry of Health, Danielle Alberto Rubio. Good morning to all the participants. Thank you for all the organizing committee.
No se le escucha muy bien, Daniel, si fuera tan amable de acercarse el micrófono, por favor.
Ya mucho mejor.
¿Se escucha aún un poco lejos?
Trato de solucionar. ¿Ya mucho mejor?
Ahí está bien.
Sí, disculpe, es que no me pude unir por el equipo de cómputo.
I apologize. I send you my greetings, really acknowledging the work for all the teams that work on ensuring food safety. We have speaking about the food safety and all the conditions that are related. The measurements have the objective to ensure that the food is safe and it doesn't affect the food. That's why we have to acknowledge that the resolutions of UN in 2018 about celebrating the World Safety Day is an effort of all the people that work on this topic, because it's important to know that all the table of the food that is on our table requires a great effort to guarantee the food safety. It's also important that for our governments, food safety is key to ensure the health of the consumers and end hunger. These aspects are outlined in the ODS. Also, we have to celebrate the implementation of the World Strategy from the World Health Organization to ensure world safety and address the new challenges, including new technologies and innovations to ensure food safety. So this event was conducted in May of this year. The objective is to ensure that all the people in all the world consume safety food and reduce the amount of illnesses transmitted by food. The objective is to contribute to the food safety in the future based on evidence, focus on people, policies, and infrastructure. In our countries today, there are different risks related to food safety that are important to mention, just like the climate change, that also have to include measurements to mitigate these risks. That's why it's important to develop an agenda to respond new illnesses. Also involve the issues of the environment to produce food more efficiently. Another aspect is to strengthen the systems for food safety to improve public health and also ensure and also protect our population from illnesses caused by the production that do not comply with the measurements. Also, it's important to mention that climate change have impacts in the population, mainly for our children that are malnourished. Finally, strengthening of abilities is key when it comes to address these issues. Everything we have mentioned forces us to work jointly with our colleagues in all the region. I send you my greetings. And we will continue working with you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rubio. Now, next, we will present you the Regional Director and Representative of United Nations Environment Program, Jacqueline Alvarez. Can you hear me? And can you see me too? Okay. Perfect. Good morning to you all. On behalf of the United Nations Environment Program is a pleasure to address this panel. As you know, food is a common good for everyone, even if we're poor, young, or old. We all need food. But unfortunately, today, the food systems are not sustainable. And like we say in the United Nations Environment Program, we are facing a worldwide crisis with three main pillars: climate change, we're losing nature, and contamination. This crisis affects directly the food safety. Prices of food makes it more difficult, the life in small farmers in the world. But that doesn't mean that we are going to just quit on food. Many communities can't even make it to the basic food, amount of food, while other communities, there are a lot of waste on food. So I'm going to speak to you these three main reasons and the planet. So about climate change, we all know that the food systems are responsible up to the 30% of the emission of green gases. So the solutions based in nature that are applicable to agricultural practices must be an efficient goal in the long term, that it's also appropriate. There are other issues, but it's also important to develop and strengthen the resilience in our communities, including the addressing the waste of food that becomes practices and the local policies. This is key to reach the goals that the international community has on the mitigation and adaptation of the countries. On the other hand, and it's a very important issue, is that climate change also threatens to end all the progress we have made in nutrition and food. If I would like to refer some of these impacts, the agricultural practices that are unsustainable, that's the key for the loss of nature. The last 50 years, the conversion of natural ecosystems for the production of food is the main cause of the loss of habitat. And on regards of contamination, there are a lot of subsidies on chemical products, pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers that affect human health, affect the soil, our oceans, or subterranean waters. I wouldn't even mention the excessive consume of plastics, and also that we have some plastics in our blood already. So that means that we have to face these food systems with an efficient approach. Like you say, like I say many times, nutrition is a main common goal for the ODS. There are other, all these pillars are interconnected and we cannot ignore them. We may create systems that are appropriate for the environment, to protect our nature, and also solve the issues of hunger around the world. We need to work and strengthen One Health system. You can also see that these pillars are human health, animal health, and the world. We need to include a specific perspective to include not only the environmental issues, but also the ODS and the economic issues. The good news on this is that there are different opportunities to change what to achieve a sustainable production food system. I will start to mention to start supporting the agricultural areas. Government invest millions and millions of dollars, and our systems are still not sustainable. The reorientation of that support, including some policies for investment, for a better social perspective that are more just. We have this information today. The data is very solid based on the science that allowed us to achieve some resilience. I'm going to speak about the reduction of waste of food. You know that this is an issue of ethics, of human rights. Approximately 14% of the production of food worldwide is waste of all the food that is available for consumers. And on the other hand, more than 10% of the population worldwide suffers from hunger. That means 811 million people that face hunger or suffer from hunger, and other 200 million people that suffer from nutrition. If we see that from another perspective, also wasting food is expensive. It generates more than $3 billion in economic, and many population is also affected in the families. The waste food consumes 1/4 of the water, clean water around the world. Food is cultivated, and also we see that the cultivation land is the size of China, and like I mentioned, and they also affect with the emission of gases. The reduction of waste of food is also beneficial, complies with different ODS. Not only is ensuring that saving money, but also reduce the contamination of the soil. If our planet is healthy, our ecosystems are healthy, and the humans are healthy. We protect biodiversity, and we work efficiently and according with the nature. In our region, fortunately, we have partnerships, public PPPs on the waste of food, and mention just some of the countries and where we work with these partnerships: Mexico, Colombia, Brazil. They're following this path. It's important that we have your commitment of each one of you to address this topic. What you just mentioned, there are some of the possibilities to bring solutions, and like the General Secretary of the UN says, food is hope, food is a necessity, and food not only allows us to evolve, become more creative, but allows us to survive, which is key. We have to support the countries. That's our UN nations commitment, and we are sure and we trust that we can implement ambitious commitments to benefit our nature and among our individuals too. Thank you very much for your important message. Now, next, I would like to present a video on the importance of food safety.
Día Mundial de la Inocuidad de los Alimentos. Alimentos inocuos para una mejor
World Food Safety Day.
Disponer de alimentos inocuos es esencial para la
Have
salud y bienestar de las personas.
safety food is essential for the welfare of people. Safe food safety is defined as a food that won't harm individuals. When the food is safety, we may take advantage of the nutrition, the chemicals included in the production of food harms people. Every year, 1 of every 10 people are affected by illnesses transmitted by food. The good news is that most of these illnesses can be prevented and applying control measurements, good practices. The HACCP system are essential for this purpose. That's why the way we create food systems, the way we organize the food chain, even the way we prepare our food, we can prevent all these dangers. We all have a role from the farm to the table to ensure that food that we eat are safe. Ministers of Agriculture in the region with OIRSA work every day for the production of safe food and to ensure health. Next June 7th is the World Food Safety Day. Let's promote together.
Organismo Internacional Regional de Sanidad Agropecuaria, OIRSA.
Recording in progress.
Continuamos con nuestro programa. Corresponde ahora el ciclo de conferencias que tenemos programadas. El primer tema de ellos es el sistema de alerta temprana a cargo de Francisco Iván Guajardo Quintanilla de Infosan. Francisco es médico cirujano y partero por la Universidad de Monterrey. Es máster en Ciencia en Salud Global por la Universidad de Ginebra y cuenta con experiencia en educación de inocuidad alimentaria en respuesta a desastres naturales, experiencia en el sector de salud público de México y en la unidad de prevención de accidentes de la Secretaría de Salud del Estado de Nuevo León.
The state of Nuevo León also
De la Organización Mundial de la Salud.
works with the World Health Organization. Go ahead.
Hola, buenos días, buenas tardes.
Good morning, good afternoon, regional authorities, national authorities, our participants. I would like to share my screen.
¿Se observa correctamente?
Can you see my screen?
Sí, adelante.
Gracias.
Yes, go ahead.
Bueno, pues como se mencionó,
Like we were mentioning, we're going to talk about the early alert system. I'm going to talk to you about Infosan, so International Food Safety Network is part of the multi-sectorial units of the Department of Food Safety in Geneva, Switzerland. So our net is a voluntary network related with food safety around the world. More than 700 participants and 900 member states is managed jointly with the World Health Organization and UN Nations, FAO. Our mission is to stop international propagation of contaminated food, prevent new illnesses transmitted by food, and strengthen the systems to reduce transmitted illnesses through food. Our vision is working as a community. So the structure of Infosan is the following. We have the contact points for emergencies Infosan from the national authority responsible for the coordination of the national activities for response related to emergencies related with food safety. Usually is one in every country and they are designated by every government. Second, we have the focal points in Infosan that are other national authorities that are interested in the food safety. That means human health, veterinary services, agriculture, commerce, fishing, etc. And these are also designated by the national authorities. Within the Infosan structure in every country, this doesn't have a specific number. There can be any number. Other members as the advisory group members, regional advisories for food safety or OMS, the regional officials for food safety and other coordinators. So you can see this is a structure or contact points. So you can see that the secretary is at the center and all these red points are the emergency contact points. In InfoSan, there are the ones that we directly communicate for each country, and the other focal points are around, and the communication when, for instance, we request some information about an incident of contamination of food. So they are in constant communication with the main point. We can see that this is an A country, and we have all the rest of the countries, and that's how we communicate through InfoSan. This is the flow of work for the assessment and response to events. We basically work through our focal points and other regional systems to notify about these alerts of food safety. We assessed first in InfoSan, and we decide if there are some measurements needed. If there are measurements that we need to take, we request information of our focal emergency points, and we send this information to all the focal points. After requesting this information, we receive a response, and we review the information again, the information received by the contact points. Sometimes we need to request more information, or we make a summary about the incident of food safety that's published in the website and InfoSan. This website and InfoSan is open to all the community for all the contact and focal points. This is a safe net that only these people have access to. So you make sure that all the information that we publish in this website about the deaths, the cases detected, the specific brands, it keeps in confidentiality. In the case that we need to manage further alert, is duly justified depending on the international distribution. We also publish that in a website in our community. We send specifically to all the focal points for emergencies, and this are in charge to disclose the information in their countries. We are going to talk about now a case that we had this year. The Chronobacter sakazaki and Salmonella Newport linked to baby formulas in powder from the United States that was possibly distributed worldwide. This is how we received this alert. On February 18, 2022, the InfoSan Secretariat was alerted by the emergency point in the United States regarding an food safety linked to powder baby formulas from the United States that was possibly distributed internationally. There were some reports of consumers that include 3 reports of infections from Chronobacter sakazaki and one informed from infection of Salmonella Newport for babies. 4 cases related with these complaints were sent to hospitals, and Chronobacter may have contributed to 1 death. In one of the cases, the InfoSan Secretariat received the notification and sends the notification to OMS and FAO, and summarizes this report of the incident, and is shared in the website of InfoSan. The same day, 15 days later, we report to the InfoSan Secretariat the list, the preliminary list of countries from international distribution. We can see some of the countries in the region: Barbados, Bermudas, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Guatemala, Mexico, Peru, and Puerto Rico. The InfoSan Secretariat contacted directly all these countries to let them know about this food safety. On Saturday, February 19, the InfoSan Secretariat contact with the countries subject to international distribution, and we confirm this information within 24 hours into the reports of the OMS and the FAO, and in a report from InfoSan on the Chronobacter sakazaki and baby powder formula were summarized in the website as a guide when we offer more information, the microbial evaluation of risk, the interventions for risk management, the Codex response and recommendations to address Cronobacter sakazaki and Salmonella, prepare and for baby powder. This is all ready after 24 hours after we report the incident. The following days, the countries notified the InfoSan Secretariat about the management actions implemented in their countries. Then they were published as they were received. On February 26, we published a list of the countries subject to international distribution. We added Argentina, Brazil, and Panama in our region. As we can see, this is that covers different regions in the world. InfoSan Secretariat contacted directly of the countries with this information. On March 10, we published that the investigations conducted in the United States demonstrated that the illness caused by Salmonella newport was not linked to the baby formula. As we developed the investigation, FDA and CDC determined that there was not enough evidence to relate this illness with the baby powder. And surveillance on the cases on Salmonella related in this incident continue in case we have a new one. During the following weeks, the countries involved inform about the updated management measures that were published on the website of the InfoSan community. Once again, in this website, every focal point of these countries, they can verify what are the actions that were taken in each country. We also included the other links, for instance, specific alerts at national level, and the last update was May 12, 2022. And the investigation from the CDC was concluded with a report of 4 cases detected and 2 deaths. We don't have any other report in InfoSan, other countries or deaths linked with this international distribution. So what are the main messages in this presentation? InfoSan detects and assesses the international incidence of food safety, and after that, we facilitate the communication of information through national borders. InfoSan also contributes to the disclosure information on contaminated products that may reduce the risk. InfoSan also is key in the exchange of information of epidemiological information that may support and help the countries to identify the cases and the international cases. InfoSan also collaborates with other regional networks contributing to the international cases. Thank you very much for your time and your attention.
Gracias. Continuamos.
Thank you very much. Now, next, we will talk about the latest updatings of limit and the reduction of plaguicides and for fruits and vegetables by Aline Oliveira. Aline is the Deputy Director of Global Access in Brian Christie Inc., where she supports the farmers and policies and the limits on the residuals. She has been in charge of the Brazilian, served as a head of International Relations Department for the Brazilian Confederation for Agriculture and Livestock in Brazil, and as a registered lobbyist in Washington, D.C., representing the Brazilian private sector interest in the United States. She obtained a project management professional, earned in Master's Latin American Studies from School of Foreign Service in Georgetown University, and an executive certificate in Mastering Trade Policy from Harvard University and bachelor's in Political Science from the University of Central Florida.
Thank you very much. I'll share my slides now. Hopefully you can see it well. Let me see if you can share the second screen, just a second. Can you see the screen well?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So to start, thank you very much. I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be here to discuss such an important topic in the context of World Food Day and the call to action to grow safe food. But before I start, let me introduce Brian Christie, our company, and let me move this over here. So Brian Christie, we are a consulting firm in the United States. We have offices in Seattle, Washington, where I'm located, and in Sacramento, California. We work with many agricultural groups to help them in their international market issues, be it through my colleagues at the Market Development Department or Research and Information Services team, or even in our shop, the Global Access team, where we deal with all access-related issues from tariffs, quarantine, pesticides, MRL policies around the world. So in this presentation, I'm going to cover the major MRL transitions and provide policy updates on some key markets. And I'll finalize talking a little bit about what's going on in the European Union that has been a major concern for many exporters. But before we start, I'm sure we may have viewers from different levels of understanding on the MRLs. Let me just start with a definition of what is a maximum residue level, or MRL. An MRL is the highest level of a pesticide residue that is legally tolerated in or on food or feed when pesticides are applied correctly, which means that the growers are following good agricultural practices. So once the growers follow the label or good agricultural practices, the residue levels should be within the regulated limits. So let's start our overview. Here in this slide, there is a timeline that shows how in the last 2.5 decades, we've seen a lot of MRL policy transitions. That is due to the great work of these institutions that are here today in promoting food safety changes. So many countries have been implementing food safety regulations. And part of that is implementing MRL policies within their own markets. I'm not going to go every one of these markets, but the last one that I want to point out is South Korea, that recently implemented their own MRL system, and it's being fully in place now in 2021. So let's go to the market-specific ones. So here are the markets that I'm going to just highlight. The first of them is the United States. So as you may know, the US has its own MRLs, and it does not defer to any other market, including Codex. It does not defer to Codex MRLs. But even though the US does not defer to Codex, it has an extensive list of MRLs established. And you can also petition EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to establish import MRLs in case you need to export to the United States and you don't have an MRL in place. The United States also does not have a default MRL. So if you need to export and you have residues on your food, even though they're in safe levels in accordance with your own country's legislation and regulation, if the US does not have an MRL, your product should have 0 residues in order to be compliant with the US regulation. So let me give you an example in the United States. I know that the US EPA recently canceled the MRLs for chlorpyrifos, which I understand is very important to many crops in the region. So since February 28 of this year, no crops in the United States or anywhere that's destined for consumption in the United States should be treated with this pesticide. However, the United States has an interesting policy, what we call channels of trade policy, which means that if your products were treated with chlorpyrifos up to February 28th, it can be legally exported to the United States as long as the residues are in compliance with the MRL that was in place at that time. I included links in the last slide of my presentation, so you can make reference to it later if it's of interest to you. So you can be still in compliance and export to the United States if you can prove that the application of that pesticide was done before the MRL change. Next, we have the European Union, which is where many of our exporters are facing challenges. I could really talk about many hours about the European Union systems and the pesticide and the MRLs. But for now, I'm just gonna give some highlights. So the European Union, they have a default MRL of 0.01 parts per million. You can apply for an import tolerance if needed. Many MRLs are becoming more restrictive in the European Union because of its pesticide review policy, which follows a methodology that is different than the one used by Codex in many other markets. Doutora Ana Marisa Cordeiro from AICA even mentioned in her opening remarks, so I really appreciated that you know, the European Union is following a hazard-based methodology for review instead of following Codex risk-based methodology for review. And as a result, many pesticides are being canceled for use and many MRLs are being restrictive. And that is a challenge for the safe production of many products, including in Latin America, that has a different tropical growing region. So it needs to apply some of these pesticides in order to export to the European Union. Then we have the United Kingdom. As you know, with Brexit, the United Kingdom now follows its own regulation. But because of Brexit, since 2021, all of the changes in the UK will come within 3 years. So for 3 years, they're not reviewing a lot of MRLs. And in 2020, they incorporated all of the MRLs that were in place for the European Union. And then from 2021 on, all of the changes that happen in the European Union are not automatically happening in the United Kingdom. One important thing to notice about this market is that all of the MRLs for the United Kingdom, so Great Britain, which is England, Scotland, and Wales, Great Britain, they'll have their own MRLs, and Northern Ireland will continue to follow EU MRLs. So if you export to Great Britain, you're going to have to follow that MRL. If somehow you export directly to Northern Ireland, you have to comply with the European MRL. So just pay really close attention to what's happening in the United Kingdom, because that's changing, and that change is going to pick up very soon. South Korea, briefly, like I mentioned, they just implemented their own system. They do not automatically defer to the Codex MRLs right now as well. They have a new system in place. They have a default tolerance of 0.01 in the case of missing MRL, not having an MRL established. You can petition for import tolerances. Korea is aligning closely with the Codex MRLs. They are accepting the Codex data packages for review. So that has been very helpful. Sorry, I'm going really quickly. It's a lot of updates for such a short time, but for China, it's very important to notice that China is also implementing a lot of MRLs. They're establishing a lot of MRLs. Their goal was to have 10,000 MRLs by 2020, which they have accomplished that goal, and now they want to further expand. The good news about China is that they are incorporating a lot of the Codex MRLs into their own system. So that is very important. and I'm going to talk about Codex in a minute. But the challenge with China is that if there is a missing MRL and you don't have a Codex MRL either, so there is no system in place so you can petition to have an import tolerance established there. And last but certainly not least is Codex, are the Codex MRLs. As you know, you have the Codex Committee on Pesticide Residues that meet and recommends, well, the JMPR recommends the MRLs and CCPR will establish these MRLs. And the challenge with the Codex system for establishing MRLs is the backlog. Unfortunately, due to COVID, but even before the pandemic, there is a huge demand for establishing Codex MRLs, but we need more resources. We need more resources be directed to the JMPR and CCPR so more Codex MRLs can be established. I know that there are many initiatives out there, many discussions to see how we can further increase the resources available so we can have more Codex MRLs established. As it is the international standard, it is very important to promote food safety and trade throughout the world. And finally, I just want to quickly highlight what's happening in the European Union. This is the #1 concern, not only for US growers, but also we get a lot of questions from Latin America, which is about the European Union, like I previously mentioned, the restriction of MRLs in the EU, and that is the current regulation that is in place. So those restrictions that are currently going on are likely to continue due to the farm to fork strategy, which is one of the pillars of the EU Green Deal. So as you may know, the European Green Deal was announced at the end of 2019. And one of the pillars of this Green Deal is the farm to fork, which was published in May 2020. And some of the objectives are to reduce the use and risk of chemical pesticides by 25%, the use of fertilizers by 20%, and increase the agricultural land in organic farming by 25%. All of these goals are very good. I think no one can discuss that we need to move in this direction. Some of this discussion has been the way that it has been implemented and also the speed in which this has been implemented. And as you know, to promote good growing practices, we need alternative products to be in place in order to replace older chemistries that might be on the way out the door. So that is one of the main concerns for the growers, the availability of new technologies for them to be able to keep up with good agricultural practices in order to meet these new demands in the European Union. So there are many changes going on in MRLs around the world right now. This is a hot topic. It's one of the fastest growing non-trade, non-tariff, I want to say barriers, but not always barriers, but non-tariff concerns, let's say, in international trade. And it is associated with food safety, but if a product has an MRL that is above the limit, not always means that the product is not safe to eat. Sometimes it's just a matter of disharmonization of regulations. So this is one of the topics that we're constantly talking about in order to try to reduce food waste. It's not because a product may have a residue that product is not safe for consumption. So we've been working really hard to try to promote MRL harmonization around the world in order to reduce food waste whenever that is the case. So I finalized my remarks here, and I included in the last slide of my presentation, I have some links here in case anyone is interested in additional information about the chlorpyrifos case in the United States. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por su exposición. Continuamos ahora con el tema sobre el fraude alimentario. A cargo del profesor Marcos Sánchez Plata, quien es asociado en Seguridad Alimentaria Global del Centro Internacional para la Excelencia de la Industria de Alimentos en la Universidad Tecnológica Texas. Lleva vinculado al proceso de inocuidad y calidad de los alimentos desde el año 1995. Ha desarrollado una serie de iniciativas de mejoramiento de capacidades en más de 20 países de Latinoamérica y el Caribe, con enfoque en el apoyo técnico a entes oficiales y regulatorios a la industria de los alimentos, los consumidores y la academia. Ha participado en un sinnúmero de conferencias científicas en los Estados Unidos, Latinoamérica, el Caribe y Europa. Además, ha servido como consultor de empresas procesadoras de alimentos de la región y organiza anualmente el curso Poultry School y Meat School en español con la Universidad de Georgia y la Universidad Tecnológica de Texas. Además, es instructor líder de la Alianza de Controles Preventivos de la Inocuidad de Alimentos y de la Alianza de Productos Agrícolas Frescos PSA. Con la Alianza de Controles Preventivos de Inocuidad de Alimentos, es además Trainer of Trainers para el Reglamento de Controles Preventivos para Humanos y del Reglamento de Verificación de Proveedores Extranjeros y es coordinadora además del Grupo de Trabajo para Asistencia Técnica de esa misma institución. Se ha desempeñado también como especialista hemisférico en inocuidad de alimentos en la oficina del Instituto Interamericano de Cooperación para la Agricultura IICA en Washington y Miami del año 2009 al 2014. Fue también profesor asociado adjunto en la Facultad de Ciencia y Tecnología de Alimentos de la Universidad de Nebraska Lincoln y trabajó también como profesor de la Facultad de Ciencias Avícolas y del programa de posgrado en Ciencia y Tecnología de Alimentos de la Universidad de Texas A&M del 2004 al 2008. El doctor Sánchez es bioquímico farmacéutico con opción de alimentos de la Facultad de Ciencias Químicas de la Universidad Central del Ecuador y completó sus posgrados que incluyen un doctorado en Ciencia y Tecnología de Alimentos de la Universidad de Nebraska, una maestría en Administración de Empresas con énfasis en agroempresas y una maestría en Ciencia y Tecnología de Alimentos de la misma institución. Escuchamos entonces al doctor.
Muchas gracias.
Perdón, doctor. Vamos a hacer la prueba con nuestra traductora a inglés.
Yes. Yes, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you, with the region, and discuss this new topic, which is food fraud. So I would like to start with some definitions from the same definitions from the FAO and us on the food control for the regulatory authority. It says that this is an authority that guarantees that the food, throughout the different production, manipulation, storage, producing, and distribution, they're safe, healthy, and available for human consumption. This includes different aspects. The objectives for food control are protect the public health, reducing the risk of illnesses, protect consumers from food that are contaminated or not well packaged. We also talk about trade and food safety, and the international trade is also affected. Within all these reports of food safety, we identify the main issues that an inspector may detect, like microbiological risk, plaguicides, improper use of additional ingredients. And what we have noted throughout the region is there's a confusion on fraud food. Most of the times people associate the adulteration as a fraud for economical purposes. So I would like to start with some definitions. When we talk about food safety, is that guarantee that the food is safe for human consumption, and we think that we have to guarantee that for the food don't cause any harm for the human, has to be consumed according to the use that was designed. If we continue with safety and quality, we have to remember that safety is related to the dangers that are chronic or severe that may harm the health of the consumer. Also has to be with the quality, that the product has to have positive characteristics. Fraud may be danger or not in the food fraud, but anyway, both factors contribute to the food safety that we accept, or we understand the availability for food for the population, with the access, social and economic access that are sure, that nutritious, and that satisfy the needs of human consumption. So the difference between safety and security safety includes to prevent the non-intentional contamination. When we talk about non-intentional contamination, may occur in any of the points of the production chain. Sometimes are environmental issues, and about the security includes the efforts to make available enough food for the population. So what are the more vulnerable products for fraud? They have the intention to have economical benefits because these products have a high value and represent more money. For instance, olive oil, fish, because there are, in this case, there are some species that are more expensive. The ecological labeling, that some of them is organic, that are practically non-existent. Also, the dairy products are easily adulterated with water, like milk is easily done. If it's done with clean water, it's okay. But if the water is contaminated, that means something serious. Some cereals that are more expensive, some honey, for instance, coffee, tea, species like saffron, curcuma, that are replaced or adulterated with cheaper species or some artificial color that have a better cost. Also in wines, juice. So there's a definition between defense and fraud. When we say the defense are the efforts that we are doing to prevent intentional contamination that represents an adulteration to the food. In this case, with biological, chemical, physical dangers that may cause an illness that are not reasonably potential, but there is an intervention of human as a source of contamination. So we include key topics. Someone with the intention to cause public danger, let's say unhappy employees, consumers, and competitors, are motivated by economic benefits, like I say, in the region. Sometimes it is cause some danger in the region because of these products. So in contrast, as a fraud, the fraud is the term that we usually use to include the intentional fraud that includes some activities that include substitution, addition, adulteration, of food, change ingredients, or change the packaging, false declaration about product with the objective to obtain some economic benefits. And the motivation of the cost may be also focus on economical benefits. Like I said, if the cost of the event for the adulteration of the fraud cause a public issue, that is an cause a food incident. So if we talk about that, the motivation of the food defense is someone that has some ideological motivation with the purpose to cause some health impacts, disruptions, demands, and the fraud is related to sell more and have better economic benefits. Both cases are an adulteration, but the defense involves some threats to health, and the fraud is related to economic benefits. I'm going to talk a couple of examples in Latin America. This is an irresponsibility of an employee, but it's also related with the defense when we talk about peanut butter that was sold even when they confirmed that had a pathogen, and that was a negligence. And when we talk about the substitution of meat in the cost of horse meat, if it was processed and they were sold as a regular meat price. In the case of milk, like I say, if we include clean water, it's a fraud, but if it's contaminated, it's a defense. In China, there was also an attempt for fraud. In the case of spices as turmeric powder or curcuma is easily adulterated with colorants, and they develop some techniques to detect the fraud of these products for this differentiation. In the case of olive oil that has a high economic value depending on the origin, there are different methods to detect the fraud with products of less quality. So we have to talk about the regional, the definitions of adulteration, because that may represent a dangerous product or may not be dangerous to the products. I'm not going to speak in detail, but I'm going to have some examples of adulterated products in which there are some of them are dangerous for health and some others are potentially food fraud because the consumer is being fooled. If we talk about the control system to protect the consumer of the consumers of unhealthy food, but also from the fraud. So just to conclude, what are we doing to prevent? We are including the HACCP management. We evaluate the vulnerability instead of dangers. We talk about the vulnerability. We identify steps on the processes when we take actions. If we identify one of these, we include a mitigation strategy, then the monitoring, and then we decide if we can apply some corrective actions and then verify and make a report. If we compare with the fraud, we say it's the same components, but the only difference is that the assessment of the vulnerability of threat, we're talking about risk of fraud, not necessarily with food safety. So there are many different sources of information to assess vulnerabilities. The Consumers Brand Association has some rules to detect some of the patterns of the fraud. For instance, some ingredients, some production practices, the change of the content of fat. So there are different assessment sources. There are different database available when they can talk about past cases. And there are different sources. Some of them are free, like you can see, and others have a subscription cost that you can that is required. To conclude, I would like to explain some methodology that is applied in the United States that talk about the three main elements to identify vulnerabilities. First of all is the potential of the impact in public health, analyzing the contaminant. The second one is the degree of the physical access that the product has to this product with the intentional adulteration. And the third one is the ability to contaminate the product to cause harm. So this is a process based on risk. We have three different analyses from 1 to 10. We add up points from each element, and then we define if there is an action needed. And then this action becomes a mitigation strategy. There are different software packages for food defense. So you can put together your own plan based on database. This is also refers to mitigation strategies and where you can find what is the degree of vulnerability and what are the recommendations. There is a guide for the implementation of these measurements where the industry can see where they can put together defense plans along with the software that I just mentioned. So we have, let's say, non-intentional adulteration and intentional adulteration. Food quality may include non-intentional issues. Contamination with no intention is related to the food safety. But when we refer to intentional, it becomes as a fraud. And when if our intention is to cause harm, it has to be with food defense. All these cases become crimes for food because they are intentional, that may cause some health problems. So we can see all the different components here. So all these concepts, we may conclude, we were talking in the region about the integrity and in food, not only talking about safety, but also authenticity, identity, and specifications of the products that ensure that it's not adulterated or modified. So with all the different steps from the evolution of good practices, hazards and risks, we are now beginning a stage of food integrity that also includes some of the new technologies we call intelligent safety. This is what I wanted to end, that there are many different components that we may review that include this transparency process beyond protection and ensuring that food safety. Thank you very much. Now, next, we would like to talk food safety challenges for the Caribbean by Dr. Susan McLennan Miguel. Dr. McLennan is a veterinary doctor. It's a master's degree from the same university in Jamaica. During the last 13 years, she has been responsible of the food safety within the agriculture services and veterinary. In 2011, Ministry of Agriculture was, she's a executive leader for food safety. She was the OEA focal point for animal production and food safety for Jamaica. She chaired the Agriculture Antimicrobial Resistance and Technical Working Group, National Codex Committee. She was a member of the National Agriculture and Food Safety. This the international health regulations, and the IFOSAN focal point for agriculture. Nowadays, she is the head of the Food Safety Department at the Regional Intergovernmental Institution of CARICOM CAFSA. With you, Mrs. San Miguel.
Favor encender su micrófono. Perfecto.
Right. Yes, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you very much for inviting us to make this presentation at this webinar. And I'm now sharing my screen. Is it sharing? Excellent. Yes, so good morning. My name is Suzanne McLennan Miguel, as you heard. I'm the Food Safety Specialist at the Caribbean Agricultural Health and Food Safety Agency. And my presentation is going to be featuring on the food safety challenges in the Caribbean region. My outline today is going to be looking at what we are calling the Caribbean region, the Caribbean facts, and some challenges that we are facing. And then we're going to look on the organization that I am representing, the Caribbean Agricultural Health and Food Safety Agency, CAFSA. And then I'm going to talk about how we're meeting some of these food safety challenges. So in the CARICOM region, or we call it the Caribbean region as well, we have over 42 million people in our different 15 and more islands and countries. And we service at least 32 million tourists annually. And we trade from Bahamas in the north, right down to Suriname, down in the south, and across to Belize. We cover that entire area of countries, except for a few in the Caribbean region. We have 3 different languages, or 4 that we deal with: the English, French, Dutch, Spanish, and other Portuguese and other languages in the region. Of course, we trade in everything. We trade in the beverages, in dairy products, in eggs, and fish products, fruits and vegetables, meat, oil, and fats. So we do have a very strong trading system. Of course, what is good about our region is that we have similar products. We trade in similar fruits and vegetables, ground provisions, the same animal-based products. We have similar markets. We trade among ourselves within the region. We trade in the Americas, North, Central, South. We trade United Kingdom, Europe, Asia, Africa, and China. And of course, we have similar environments. We have volcanic soil. We have different weathers. We have dry season, wet season. We have fish in the Atlantic, Pacific, and different Caribbean Sea. We have similar pests and diseases that are affecting us. And so some of these, we have to look at it as a regional approach. And some of these conditions are also foodborne. Anything that is not in our region has to be introduced to us. And along with that, we have similar supportive systems. We have universities, we have research, we have labs in the region. So with all that said, what are some of the challenges we have? For us, because we import, our challenges start from importation. It's not just from the farm to the processing to our consumers, it starts with the import. And that is going to have a direct effect on food and nutrition security in the Caribbean. We want to grow as much as we want, but most of the basic ingredient comes from abroad. And so the risk analysis and the risk aspect of it bringing into our country has to be heightened, and that is very important as part of our food safety system. Of course, I spoke about also that we are affected by natural disasters. Now we're preparing for hurricane. We have been having floods in Suriname and Guyana, and we just come out of St. Vincent having volcanic eruptions. So we do have a lot of issues. We also have issues with identification and traceability. We are now coming from a culture where we know our farmers next door and they plant and they share it in the community. But now our community is global. We're bringing in things and we're sending out stuff. So identification traceability system is going to be a challenge for us. So we have updated technologies that we're working with still. We have updated legislation we're working with still. We have different food safety system in different countries. Everybody's not the same. Everybody has their own import requirements, their own certification, their own risk assessments that's being done. And then their lab support is either few or non-existent. And so for plant research, for animal, for the environment, the water and soil testing, for feed, and these different residues, I hear about MRLs in the speaker before, all of these are challenges for us because we have to have the laboratory support and the resources to go out there and collect samples and do this data collection. And so for food safety now falls in several ministries, several, in the health, in agriculture, industry, extension on fisheries, it's wide. And so monitoring surveillance programs to cover all the same food we're eating is really a challenge because of the amount of players we have. So what about for our stakeholders? Our farmers and also industry players have to be empowered. They have to know their responsibility along the chain and what to expect, what to do. They also need to be aware of their rights and demands if they're going to import products, produce it, and export it. So they have to be trained as well. And then the lack of knowledge and training, the data, lessons learned that we need to collaborate, it's not strong. It needs to be strong because only by doing a One Health approach, we're going to learn. I heard in a speaker that we have to learn from others. We have to look at what is happening, collect the data, use it so that it can strengthen us. And of course, we have a lot of member states having different committees. We have international health regulation committees. We have the info stand that I spoke about this morning. We have focal points. We have laboratory networks. We have so many food safety focal points, and they need to come together. The Codex groups, the national Codex committees in each country need to come together. And so we do have to take measures. So because we have all of these challenges, we step up, the Caribbean step up, but we're doing it in each country. We are training our experts. And so we have different projects and different countries helping us to build our supportive staff. We have farmers training through the extension office. They're training, yes, but how is it pulling it together with the food safety thing? We have strong cultures. We have our own food cultures, and now we have other cultures coming in. We have the Chinese coming in. We have the person from Venezuela. We have person from Japanese. We have people from Thailand. Their food culture is coming in, and they want that type of delicacy here too. And so we have to adjust. Climate change is not giving us a rest, and so we have to adapt. We have to do the adaptation in order to do that, and to certify the programs so that we can have trade among ourselves and out to the global. But all of this is supported by intergovernmental agencies, all our government agencies, and other non-governmental agencies. And this is one of the biggest challenges. We're working in silos. Even within our countries, we work as silos. We are talking about good agricultural practices, and yet we don't join what we're doing in plants, in the animal and honey and different peppers, different things. We have to understand that everything that we do has an impact at the final product. And what's the final product? The food we're eating. And so from the primary production, how we transport it, how we process it, how we retail, all of these measures you see on this slide is what the global world is asking us to put in place so that we can trace our food just like a barcode. So how do we do it now? Here comes the Caribbean Agriculture, Health and Food Safety Agency. It was signed by the different member states of the Caribbean community to recognize that we need a group, an agency that can coordinate all of these agriculture, health, and food safety issues. These sanitary and phytosanitary measures that all of us need to put in place. And that was done in 2010 and signed, but it really became operational in 2014. It's governed by a board of directors representing each member state. And now we have 3 departments. We have plant, we have animal, And now we have food safety with me coming on board. What is our coordination role? Our mandate is we are going to be becoming like a beacon, a lighthouse for the region. We're going to be collecting all of the resources and giving it out so that all of our member states, all our ships, all our countries coming in can benefit so that we can have a harmonized food safety system for the region so that we can do that. And this is why CASTA is here as a beacon with the countries out radiating the light, supporting it. What are some of our 5 priorities for our food safety department? Well, the first one is we are supporting World Food Safety Day, and we are glad to be here at this webinar. We're going to be doing one on June 6th as well. And then we're going to be supporting the one for June 7th from Codex. But each member state has also a list of activities they're doing. And we want the world to know that what we're doing so that we can also show that we are strong in the food safety system. We're going to establish what we're calling the Caribbean Task Force on Food Safety, a focal group where we're going to bring all of these focal groups of different parts of the food safety so that we can work together as a team. We have also developed 19 agricultural product guidelines, 15 in plant and 5, to look at how the different criteria, procedures that you need in order to safeguard these products. We want to do a food consumption survey because only by doing that data can we understand what are the risks of the different type of food delights we have. Remember, our culture is now global, and we can't do all of this unless we have a strong certification scheme. We have to, just like the world, you put a barcode on your product. We want to empower all our stakeholders, both the consumer in the supermarket, both the industry player, both the persons who are importing and the regulators. At the end of the day, we want to be able to have a harmonized regional food safety system. And how we're doing that? We're starting by developing a regional agriculture health and food safety policy and an action plan. And along with that, also a national agriculture health and food safety policy framework for the member states to use. So we have 76 million reasons why we need to have healthy import products. We need to have 76 million reasons why we need healthy plants, animal, and an environment to do our production. And of course, at the end of the day, we have healthy food for our healthy 76 million people. As we're calling for action, June 1st is today, we started, and we're telling everybody, save the day, shout it out, bring out all the efforts we have to strengthen our World Food Safety Day efforts. Because all governments are asking, everybody are putting our hands together. CASA, CRF, which is the Caribbean Regional Fishery Mechanism, CrossQ, PAHO. And we want to feature all of these on our website because we love food in the Caribbean. We do. One Health Caribbean, one health love for food. And the next webinar we have is on the 6th of June, which is going to feature a lot of how we have to work together, how we can be strong as we work towards the harmonized regional food safety system. And with that, let us all continue to have safer food, better health for all. Thank you.
Muchas gracias a todos los destacados conferencistas por sus valiosos aportes.
Thank you very much to all the speakers. We're about to finish this event. We now going to present a message for the food safety and processed food.
La inocuidad de alimentos.
Food safety is to bring the consumers products free of chemical contamination, and that's important to ensure consumers' health. During many years, ANFABA has actively participated in the registry system of health registry that's based on the implementation of good practices in production and the Ecuador regulation. That means that the consumers in Ecuador is sure of all the healthy, that the food is healthy. So before our closing remarks, I would like to ask all the participants to turn on the cameras. We are going to take a picture to put in our files.
Hay algunas cámaras aún apagadas, si fueran tan amables de apoyarnos. Muy bien, muchas gracias. Muy bien, muchas gracias a todos. Pasamos entonces a la parte final y conclusión de este webinar.
Now we are going to finish this webinar, and now I would like to introduce to you the OIRSA director. Thank you very much to all the participants, mainly the organizers, the FAO, OPS, Codex Committee for Latin American and the Caribbean, or OIRSA, of course, our panelists that join us during this activity, and the authorities that address their messages today. That even though today is June 1st, it's just the beginning, because we have dedicated June to celebrate World Food Safety Day. And what we decided is that we prefer to have this event today, so that the countries may have June 7 to develop their activities. We have had different connections in Latin America, United States, Central America, the Caribbean region, and South America. I would like to thank all the supporting team from OIRSA, with Juan Pablo Guzman, Nelson Andrade, Lisette Marroquin, and our secretary, Yvonne Gonzalez. Thank you very much. And hopefully we may celebrate all the month about Food Safety Day, and remember the participants that we have better food, we are healthier. Thank you very much. Thank you for your participation. And we would like to finish with a video about the alliances and food safety. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
La FAO lidera los esfuerzos mundiales para poner fin al hambre. Quisiera compartir las 4 razones por las que las alianzas y las inversiones en materia de inocuidad de los alimentos resultan esenciales para alcanzar ese objetivo. Primero,
first of all, there's better production. Food safety starts with a better agricultural production. People's health is related with food, animals' health. That's why it's so important. Secondly, we can ensure that the nutrients from food has to be healthy. So in some cases, we can see where when the food is healthy, the FAO promotes good practices, such as including the Codex. Third place, improve the environment. One of the priorities of the FAO is to increase the food safety. That brings benefits to the environment and reduce wasting food. Also brings benefits for individuals and food safety. Finally, we have a better quality life when we have safe food, consumers are healthy, and the producers can sell their products domestically and internationally. Safe food is a great benefit. I encourage you to continue working in food safety. Let's celebrate next June 7th, World Food Safety Day.